but it is something very significant that the individual in the UK can actually do to recognise the problem of the rainforest by not buying timber that comes from those sources.
We're going to come back to that. Hugh Rossi sitting next to you mentioned aerosols. How important, we've talked about cutting down the rainforest, or as Julian said, subsistence farming as well, contributing to the demise of the rainforest. How important are aerosols in destroying the atmosphere or the ozone layer?
Well, aerosols themselves have up to now been, a lot of them contain this chemical CFCs, which is mainly contributing to the destruction of the ozone layer. But the CFC chemical also contributes to the greenhouse effect. So that in itself is a great problem. But that chemical is not only in aerosols, it's in a lot of other products you might buy as well.
Why are we using aerosols? Why are we using aerosols?
There's plenty of choice available at the moment. I think it's already been said that the manufacturers have announced that they are coming out of CFCs by the end of the year. The retailers have followed suit. I mean, we've got products like this, labelled ozone friendly.
Let me hold them up.
Labelled
advertising here.
I hope
Touch
not.
of silk, that's appropriate.
That's a good one. There's also things like this, which is a pump action spray, and if I can just do it, it works fine. That's a total alternative to aerosols.
And that was it more expensive?
It's cheaper.
Well, why aren't we using them?
Because they are currently not in every brand of every type of product. They are being introduced.
But hang on,
but it's only customer demand that will get that. There is a choice available now.
Why does it have to be customer? Hang on. Why does it have to be customer demand? You're here from Boots. You're telling me that you can stop all the terrible things that are happening to the ozone layer and to the greenhouse effects and all the rest of it by producing things like this, which are cheaper than what. Why don't you have some kind of social responsibility and do it?
It's a question. Social responsibility is certainly there. Our job, though, is to provide the services that the customers want. It's not to act as arbitrary banners of anything.
We haven't got the right just to go and destroy life quite haphazardly, and we are incredibly foolish if we do that, because we don't know what the consequences are going to be. I mean, everybody uses this cliche about the intricate web of life, but it is a fact. If you knock one bit out, if it's a mold or if it's a virus or whatever, you do not know what the consequences are. And quite apart from all the medicines that Bill has talked about, there's this other question of food resources. All our food comes from a mere handful of plants. What happens if those plants are struck down by some disease? There are, I believe, only 2% of all plant species have ever been investigated for their food or for their medical properties. If we're just going to destroy them, what is going to become of us?
So what do we do? What do we do to stop destroying them? You heard about people saying we should exercise more consumer choice, should be more positive. Should we do that?
Well, as far as habitat are concerned, we have now said that we will no longer import or use any endangered tropical hardwoods in any of our furniture products. It's a small step, but nonetheless we felt that we are caring in the environment, in the home environment, so therefore it should extend to the world environment.
Is that enough, do you think, Julia? You were kind of looking, I don't know whether it was agreement or distaste.
I just wanted to use that as an example of the sort of thing that consumers can do and initiate, because if they are actually saying they don't want to buy tropical hardwoods, which come from the rainforest, companies like Habitat will actually be saying, well, we don't want to stock it, and that produces great pressure on the governments and the people who are supplying that tropical timber.
Elizabeth Emmanuel, seeing you sitting there makes me think of a question. You've heard people say that they aren't going to buy, might change their bank accounts if their bank's dealing in Brazil, that they don't buy Habitat hardwoods, that Boots are producing aerosols that are non-CFC. The lady there was saying something else about wimpies. You won't?
No.
Weren't your clothes? You design clothes for the rich and famous, don't you?
Mm-hmm. And people are very, very aware of all the problems. And I think they want to know positive ways they can actually do things. We've just taken part in a project to help save the seals. And we tried to help by doing a sweatshirt, and people could put money in that way. But I think if they know that there's an end result, they can actually see where their money's going. It's actually stopping, if they could actually see that it's stopping people destroying the rainforest, that would help a lot.
Okay. We've heard our friend there say it doesn't really, and Michael here, it doesn't really matter very much. Have we got a more polluted Britain? Is the pollution? Yes. Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm Clive, this is Anne. 15 years ago we moved from London, from all the pollution etc, having gone through the 50s of smogs etc. We went to Cornwall for a better life, a better environment to bring our children up. We have now been poisoned by the water board, polluting our water. We were misguided completely.
This is the aluminium that
This is the aluminium sulfate, which is over 16 times the estimated amount that it shouldn't go over by the ECC. 4,100 milligrams per litre of aluminium in our water. We
that was in our tap
continually
water.
phoned up the water board after knowing there was a problem and were given emphatic instructions that the water was okay to drink. This is happening on our doorstep.
They told us it was like Coca-Cola.
Carry on drinking it, they say. So we kept samples and dated and sent them off to various authorities, the water board, the environmental people. No results, no problem, all neutral.
And we are
but
still suffering.
we took on our own.
Other
and
people have been in that same kind of thing, suffered from pollution, yeah?
Yeah, well, I live in an area of Scotland in Fife, which is fairly heavily polluted. We have Grangemouth, where they process the oil. We have the Rosyth nuclear dockyard. We have Longannet power station. We have Mossmorn, which again is a hazard. And we're kind of in the centre of all that. And when my wife and I first moved there about 4.5, 5 years ago, when our second son was born, he had a heart defect. And we were told by the doctors that, coincidentally or not, that defect came about at the same time that we moved to that area during her pregnancy. And there are many leukemia cases in the area among children, and we've all heard, of course, about pockets of leukemia cases around nuclear power stations. But it seems to be washed away by government spokesmen. They don't seem to believe it. And I think that our friend the scientist down there sounds a little bit like Neville Chamberlain in 1938, with a Peace in Our Time speech, where we can all see what's happening in this build-up, and they seem to just ignore it.
I know we've got a doctor here as well as a scientist. Is pollution a problem for our health, like we just heard the cases there?
It certainly is. I think it's becoming increasingly clear to physicians who work in environmental medicine that people are extraordinarily polluted. You can measure the pollutants in blood, and it may be hundreds of times that in the fat tissue as well. We know, for instance, that people who are exposed to the kinds of pollutants that we're speaking about here today have immune suppression. They have often developed an extreme sensitivity to things, and it's beyond the realm and discussion of toxicity. We're talking about sensitivity.
Let's put it
to
in
things.
terms I'm going to understand. I live in Britain. How's pollution affecting me or people like me?
How about when you came to the theatre this morning, you were breathing carbon monoxide in the air, which was above World Health Organization guidelines.
Absolutely.
This is the 5th time in 3 weeks
And
that
the
this has
effect of
happened.
that is?
Well, that's going to affect your ticker.
No, tell me in detail. What else?
If you've
This
got a
is
bad
lead
heart,
poisoning,
no,
right?
no, this is carbon monoxide poisoning in London's air, which comes from cars. So for the 5th time in the last 3 weeks, it's been unacceptable. If you've got a bad heart, if you're old or if you're young, it'll put a strain on your bodily functions,
What about
which
our
will
water?
severely affect your health.
We heard our water there was an accident. Is our water clean? Are we polluting our water?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, we're the worst country in Europe at the moment for polluting our water supplies. It has all kinds of toxic levels and carcinogenic levels, and we're destroying the very source of life ourselves, the North Sea, for example. We've seen the death of seals this year. That's the result of the North Sea being bombarded with toxic
And
chemicals
the
and waste
scientists
from all
said
over
that
the
everything
planet.
was okay in the North Sea as well when that was happening. Scientists like this gentleman here has been reassuring us about the quality of the North Sea for the last 6 years, and then suddenly thousands of seals die. I think it's
And the water authorities, may I say, are worse than any lethal and vile enemy we've had in 2 world wars, because they're destroying the very source of life.
I think that's your cue, Mr. Waterman. What did you say to all this?
Yes,
We've got filthy water, haven't we?
No, we haven't. No, the public supplies are clean, and
Well, why don't they come up to World Health Authority standards?
They do.
Why don't
They do.
what?
They come up.
Have you seen
the
headline in the Telegraph this morning about
Yes, I
nitrates?
have. That's something we've been pressing for some
that doesn't
time,
suggest
which
that
is
we
protection zones.
Hang on, because you're saying something that I've never understood to be true all the time as a member of Parliament or since. I've never understood the water in Britain, drinking water, came up to EEC standards either on nitrates or on aluminium or lead or a whole host of other things, and I don't need Jonathan Porritt to tell me that. I know that. You telling me that I've been mistaken all those years?
You said the World Health standards, and
I said the EEC directives as well.
No, you did not. Yes, on the EEC standards, there are some of them that are not complying at the moment. They're being brought up to standard.
Why isn't my drinking water as clean as that drunk by an Italian or a Frenchman or a German?
Oh, it is as clean as you'll get anywhere on the continent.
And may I say the EEC standards are outdated now. They no longer detect pathogenic detail with viruses.
The UK government, even now, is actually engaged in a process where the limits on pesticide levels in water will be relaxed. Instead of actually accepting that pesticides in water are a real hazard to human health, the UK government at this very moment is lobbying in Brussels to make sure that the EC directive on water quality will be made more lenient, so that we get a greater concentration of pesticides in our water.
Greater part of the criminals
Let the man you're calling criminal.
Yes, I have the evidence.
The EC directive is causing difficulty throughout Europe, and it's not just Britain, it's all the countries are in difficulty complying with it because of the way in which it's been written. And on the particular point on pesticides, there is a blanket standard in the directive. What we actually need is more stringent standards on some of the more toxic pesticides and more relaxed ones on ones.
You tell me which ones we're going to have a more stringent standard on.
The pesticides are not all.
You tell me, name me one pesticide we're going to end up with a more stringent standard rather than a more lenient standard.
No, I can't.
You can't. I'll tell you why you can't.
What about a simple matter like sewage?
Hey, hang on. Jonathan's going to tell us why.
Well, you can't, because the UK government is trying to relax these standards to actually make it easier for water authorities and to allow farmers to go on polluting the land and the water in the way they're doing
Because they
now.
want to leave it all to private enterprise. That's why private enterprise is
Why
going to
are
be better.
all right? Very little discussion around drinking water. Why are our rivers dirty?
On the rivers, there's a big
Mrs.
program
Thatcher
now
said
for-
all that thing about the Thames being cleaner, but in fact, Jonathan will have the figures again, I'm sure, but more rivers are dirtier, polluted now than they were in 1979 when the government came to. Why are our rivers getting dirtier, not cleaner?
Well, it's been a lack of investment, and that is actually, the corner has turned on that. There's now a very big programme for cleaning up sewage works, and I think we can look forward to improving river quality.
Under private enterprise?
Under whatever enterprise. What matters, and it doesn't matter whether it's private or public, what matters is actually investing the money in getting the sewage works up to standard.
Why don't the water authorities prosecute people like ICI who break the law and pollute the water bodies? You have the option of prosecuting them. Why don't you take it up?
Prosecutions are used as a last resort.
Hang on, you can't throw questions without letting the man answer.
What we all want is to get cleaner rivers. Now, prosecutions are one element in that, and prosecutions are used in the case of flagrant pollutions. But often it's a matter of trying to work with industry and get them to improve.
Why aren't you helping the water authorities or industry to make our rivers, our water quality cleaner?
Well, I suggest you read the last committee report and you'll find that we are. The point about prosecutions is this.
No, by we you mean the Select Committee or the government?
Yeah, the Select Committee.
No,
And the government is following our recommendations. No, but look, on this, the trouble with the water authorities is they've been given the job of both being poachers and gamekeepers. They both put stuff into the rivers and they're supposed to prosecute other people. The government are now setting up a national rivers authority which is going to be the policing monitoring force, and the water authorities will be as subject to those as private industry.
Where's the CEGB? CEGB, are you going to help to improve our water?
There's one, we do improve your water actually. Actually having a power station on the river actually does oxygenate the river. But I mean, let me get back to another point, and that is that it's all gloom and doom that we've heard about.
Wait a minute, what's going on here? What's going on? Jonathan?
I've never heard a more outrageous claim. The CGB have a few tricks up their sleeve now. They are really trying to demonstrate they're the saviors of the environment. That is the richest, most impertinent claim I've ever heard from the CGB.
Let me just say something about air pollution that we've heard. If we look at air pollution in this country and compare it with what it was like in the 50s and 60s, although in some respects it's got worse, in a lot of respects it's got much better. Burning coal, the sulphur and smoke from coal is now at very much lower levels than it used to be. And okay, we've got problems abroad with acid rain, but action is being taken on that as well. So it's not all the problem.
As well.
It's
So
not
our
all
lakes and forests are dying too.
So what should we do? What should we do?
Well, the first thing that we should do is clean up the power stations. There are 42 power stations in the UK. We're only going to clean up one of them in the next 5 years. That's disgraceful.
We've got a programme that's going to be about 6 power stations again.
What's the most important single thing we should do to the environment?
We read the writing on the wall. The evidence is quite clear. We have to stop arguing the point with each other. We have to muck in once and for all. I mean, once upon a time, anybody that was anyway ecology-minded, they were labelled young, gay, black, lesbian.
What's the most important thing? I want to know, what's the most important single thing we can do to help preserve the environment or deal with pollution?
The most important thing you can do is to use your shopping power to actually buy more environmentally friendly products and actually boycott the ones that are damaging to the environment. And by that you can encourage energy efficiency, cleaner water, and a lot of these things. It's not the only solution, but it's certainly something that everybody can participate in.
We're not powerless. You can help. You can have a hand in your own destiny. Take it. See you in the morning. Thank you.